course, you realise that if you're not spending a lot of time in London, you might actually believe the lies that are being perpetrated by various racist liars and traitors. But I don't know why they're doing it. And what left the door open to these lies? When you have, like, educated Americans labouring under the illusion that London is less safe than their own big cities, you know you've actually got a proper problem. And I don't understand why people have created this problem. I want you to tell me. I've got theories, but I want to hear yours. Sean's in Wembley. Sean, what would you like to say?
Morning, mate.
Hello.
I was born on the Boot Estate in Liverpool, in Norris Green, and it was voted the worst place in Europe to live.
Blimey.
And we got loads of abuse for it, loads of abuse. It was perfect. It was a lovely place to live. It was just got a bad reputation. I then moved from there when I was 18 to London, and I've lived here ever since. Got 3 kids, 4 grandkids. Just the best place to live. If it wasn't a good place to live, I'd move.
I mean, you would vote with your feet. So
I voted with my feet looking for a job when I was 18.
Fair enough.
You know, and I've been here. I've lived in. I'll tell you something funny. When I moved to London, we moved because we knew it was a good place to go to, and we got a job on the very first day that we got here. And then we lived in Alston, which was meant to have a bad reputation, which we found to just be full of working class people of all races and religions. It was an absolutely brilliant place to live. And then I met my missus, who lives in Wembley, and she comes under Brent, and that's supposed to be the worst borough to live in. And I've lived here for 38 years in Brent, and I've never had a problem.
Why are they lying about us?
I think a lot of people are jealous. I think a lot of people are jealous of London.
Does that lead to lies? I'm trying to think who I'm jealous of. I try to live a very zen existence these days, but if I'm jealous of someone, then I wouldn't lie about them.
Well, yeah, do you know what though? There's horses for courses. There's so many weird people out there. You know, I've got people who've never been to London. I know people who've never been to London, who live in Liverpool, who've never been to London. And then when they do come down and they stay with us and I take them out and I show them the sights, they love it. They absolutely love it.
And that is the point, isn't it? I mean, I know it's one story and the plural of anecdote is not data, but for the general manager of the Dorchester to weigh in on something like this is a moment. If he's got very, very rich guests turning up from overseas, convinced that they need to hire private security to accompany them on the streets of our capital, and then 2 days later coming back and saying, "Oh, by the way, I don't need the private security. I don't know where that came from." Then damage is being done, not only to our reputation, but quite possibly to our economy as well. And it's being done deliberately. Listen, some people will be doing it for clicks and kudos. I get that. And people will post anything online in pursuit of clicks and kudos. But other people, public figures, people like Farage and his mates, why do they want London to be less economically successful? Why do they want the capital city of a country they claim endlessly and repeatedly to love to die or to wither or to suffer? I genuinely don't get it. Jealousy is the first answer we got from Sean. What would you put in that space? Rosa is in Camberley. Rosa, what do you reckon?
I think it's racism. That sounds really simple, but hear me out.
Go on.
London is the most ethnically diverse part of the UK. It's probably one of the most ethnically diverse cities around. I don't know, but to me, to demonise London is admitting that multiculturalism works.
That's a really interesting point, isn't it? That idea of we can't sustain our white supremacy, we can't sustain our ludicrous hierarchies, we can't justify the discomfort or the madness we feel when we watch adverts with black people in them. We can't actually maintain our entirely bogus sense of superiority when we look at London and see what a proper melting pot looks like. And God forbid you have a Muslim mayor.
Yeah, indeed. But I really do think it's that simple. But it's such a big part of the far-right propaganda in the US as well. I'm not surprised that you've got these US elites with this idea that London is a dystopic hellhole that's unsafe. This is a very intentional narrative that's being peddled. And I do think if you look at who is peddling it, these are people who insist multiculturalism is unsustainable, that it doesn't work. London is the threat of a good example, that actually they're wrong and it does work. London is a wonderful
It's
place.
the maddest thing in a way, isn't it? Because if you are really convinced that you're right about something, then you the last thing you'd do is lie. Or at least you'd recognise that the necessity of lying in order to sustain your worldview suggests that your worldview might not be entirely accurate. So you find a city where multiculturalism clearly and demonstrably works, and then you start lying about the fact that it doesn't, instead of wondering whether your attitudes or thoughts about so-called multiculturalism might be entirely bogus and mistaken. John's in Islington. John, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
Love the show.
Thank you.
So I'll just give a tiny bit of context first. So I grew up in a council estate, went to a very multicultural school. I was the only white kid in my class at sometimes. Grew up in a very Muslim area, and I always prided myself on loving London. I absolutely adored the city. I've never had a problem. And I walk down my street and get on with people of all religions, races, and whatever.
Yeah.
I I've got a master's degree, went and got a good job in finance, and my life has been very, very good. Got a nice place in central London. Anyway, so at some point over the last year, I started to feel this rage, and I started to have some quite abhorrent views. They borderlined on, there was a kind of ethno-preservationist element to it. There was complaining about London and saying it's full of delivery drivers and crime and it's a war zone, and just perpetuating lies about my own city and not my lived experience. And it got worse and worse to the point that my girlfriend of 10 years said, "Hamish, I don't know if I want to be with someone who holds..." John. I don't know if I want to be with someone who holds these views. And basically, I realised that I had been going down a rabbit hole of just stuff coming up in my feed, basically, and it started with a single click, and before I knew it, I was inundated with essentially right-wing propaganda from...
It looks real, though. It looks real.
No, but it's the thing, James. So I wasn't believing the evidence in my eyes and ears. I love this city. I walk around feeling safe, happy, love every element of multiculturalism, and but I started believing that something was terrible, even though my own eyes and ears told me it wasn't. So I believed, rather than my own lived experience.
So how did you break the spell? What did you do?
My girlfriend said, "You need to go on your feed and just say to YouTube," I'm a big YouTube person,
yeah.
Say, "Don't show me this. Don't show me this." And before I knew it, I was getting content about football, watches, and I completely that dissipated all those views, which had been kind of. I would say an articulate, well-read person.
Clearly.
I was susceptible to being kind of brainwashed by a bunch of idiots.
Well, Frederick's been in touch. A caller last week said that he knew the stats on crime were wrong because all of the violent clips on his social media posted every day proved it. He's using that as his news feed. I think I saw Musk boasting yesterday about Twitter being the most popular news feed in the world. It's not news. Because to be news, what you see, those clips of violence, A, you'd have to prove that they were in London and establish that they were in London, and of course some of them will be. But then B, you'd somehow have to balance it out with all of the examples of non-violence. Do you see what I mean? It's like if I eat an unleavened diet of Monster Munch, then I'm going to be very, very unhealthy. But if I eat a balanced diet and the occasional bag of Monster Munch, I'm not going to be very, very unhealthy. If I'm watching something that's utterly manipulated to create a certain feeling in me that's not real or true, the feeling is real or true, but the stuff that I'm watching is not representative or balanced or fair. The number of under 25s being murdered in London is the lowest it's been for 2 decades. The murder rate overall is lower than it is in percentage or per capita terms. It's lower than it is. I mean, you'd be unsurprised to discover it's lower than New York, but it's lower than Brussels, Paris, Berlin, Madrid. And yet, as you say, you can spend a couple of days online and come away with the idea that it's World War III out there. Your girlfriend must be relieved.
Yeah, I mean, it really quickly dissipates, and honestly, my life, I'm believing myself again rather than what some complete idiots on some YouTube podcast are telling me who don't even live in London. And honestly, I'm back to walking down my street, loving everyone, just loving my life. I have a brilliant life, and I was made to believe I didn't by a bunch of complete idiots.
Well, made to believe you don't have a good life, you don't live in a good city, and of course that's corrected me a bit, has put me In my place a little bit. I must speak to Lou in Hampton Hill because she's probably nodded off waiting so long to come on. Lou, why are they doing it?
Oh, hi, James. I was got a bit nervous.
It's only me.
My daughter's told me not to sound crazy because she's listening.
OK, I will warn you if you're beginning to sound crazy, all right?
OK, so I'll just give you a little bit of background. I grew up on the South Coast and I moved to London when I was 19. My family all stayed down on the South Coast.
Yeah.
I think there was probably one black kid in my school. I moved to Shepherd's Bush and had two beautiful mixed heritage children. And I grew up in a very West Indian environment, which I loved, and I loved Shepherd's Bush. I never felt scared. I would walk down the road late at night. I just loved London, and I'm just used to London. Now, I've been racking my brains as to why someone that, for example, NF, Nigel Farage, why he would want to do the country in London down. I was thinking, why would he do that, you know? And I almost stopped and thought I might ask ChatGPT, but I think I've been thinking about this on my journey, and I've pulled over, by the way.
Thank you.
I think possibly, is it because if he says it's really bad, he can then be the great saviour you're going to vote for because he's going to change everything and make it much better? Could it be that?
Well, it's possibly part of it. Although you sort of sense that they've written London off, or London has to be siloed from the nonsense that they spout the rest of the time, because it proves that they're spouting nonsense. You know.
Honestly, they are. But what's so interesting?
I think Clacton. I think his constituency has got the poorest estate in the whole of England in it, for example, and I never hear him talking about that.
No, but also what's really I found interesting is my sisters and mums still live down by the South Coast. It's a bit more mixed down there, but now. But they're coming up to see me next Friday, and my middle sister said to me, "Oh, you know, is it okay? Is it safe?"
Yeah.
And I said, I laughed because I said to her, "What makes you say that?" And she said, "Well, I've seen all these things, you know, on social media," and I thought, well, I haven't seen them, which is strange. But maybe that's... Well, I don't go on social media.
No, it's the algorithm. It's the algorithm.
Well, it's got to be. It's mad.
But it's why the queue for the ghost train is longer than the speak your weight machine. It's a human condition to almost revel in fear. And you can do it when it's on the screen because, you know, if someone says to you, oh, there's a mug around the corner, no one's going to run around the corner in the hope of seeing the mugger. But if you watch violence on screen, it actually appeals to something visceral inside us, something primal that we want to watch more and more and more and more. Like we love being frightened. I guess it's why we watch horror films.
Maybe.
But we know that they're fiction when we're watching them. People end up thinking this is factual.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, James, we're all very privileged to be in London and be in that mixed environment that we don't almost notice it. So when like things like the black people thing on adverts, well, we don't notice it really anyway because why should we? Whereas are you
telling me you don't sit there with your notebook putting a little tick on this page every time you see a brown person in an advert?
But it's so,
you weirdo.
I find it so strange.
It is just strange. You know, well, it's not strange. It's racist.
But it's also because, James, like, for example, I know my sisters are not racist.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
But my sister has even said to me, well, there's loads of black people now on adverts, and she's noticed that because
someone's told her to.
Well, she doesn't see it often. Do you see what I mean? So she's not in her village or town. There's not loads of black people.
But also, what do you say then? Do you say so what, or why does that? I mean, in a non-aggressive fashion, do you say what? Why does that matter? Why?
I said to her, I think you've noticed it because, you know, you're just... I mean, she's definitely not racist. Her son's married to a black lady and my children are black. So, but it's just... maybe it's unconscious bias, actually. Maybe it is
well, she's been told to notice it by that dreadful Sarah Poaching woman. She's been told not just to notice it, but to feel mad about it.